In the heart of Lagos, there was a company that had deprived people of their happiness. A company that had removed food from many people's tables, leaving families in hunger and sorrow. A company that had taken away the dreams of parents, making it impossible for them to train their children in school. A company that did not just set people back in life, but pushed many of them straight to their early graves. Tears had been shed because of this company. Homes had been broken. Laughter had turned into silence, and hope, once alive in the hearts of many, had been buried without mercy. People spoke about it in hushed tones. Some mentioned it with fear, others with anger. But one thing was certain: anyone who had crossed paths with that company never remained the same. The name of this company was Ezeego Capital Management. It stood tall in the city of Lagos, rising above other buildings like a symbol of wealth and promise. Its walls were made of shining glass that reflected the sun so brightly that anyone who passed by could not help but turn and look. The compound was always neat, always sealed with expensive cars that spoke silently of riches and power. Inside the building, everything looked perfect. The floors shone like mirrors, the air was cool and carried the scent of wealth. Workers dressed in fine clothes welcomed visitors with warm smiles, making everything feel safe, everything feel real. On the walls were charts and pictures, charts showing profits rising higher and higher, pictures of people smiling as if they had discovered the secret to endless success. The company spoke sweet words. They presented themselves as a trading company that specialized in buying goods from overseas on behalf of clients. They told people that their business stretched far beyond Lagos, even across the seas. People would give them money to purchase goods, electronics, fabrics, machinery, or other high-demand items. And Ezeego Capital Management promised that every shipment would arrive safely and that clients would receive their goods in perfect condition. And to anyone who listened, it all sounded true. And so, people believed. They came from different places, carrying what they had. Some came with 5 million naira, some came with 50 million naira, some came with 120 million naira. Some sold their lands just to fund their orders. Some brought their business profits. Some brought money they had saved for many years. And some even borrowed money from banks, trusting the company to buy goods for them and deliver them safely. They gave everything: their life savings, their hope, even money set aside for their children's future, believing that Ezeego Capital Management would safely bring their goods to them. But when it was time to receive their shipments, when it was time for their goods to arrive, then everything changed. Their hope, their trust, everything they thought they knew about the company was crushed. Because when that time came, they were denied. The company turned its back on them. The owner denied them. He replied that he did not know them. He said he had never seen them before. He replied no business had ever taken place between them. Their cries meant nothing. The proof of their transactions, the proof of their payments, the proof that they had ever entrusted money to the company meant nothing. The clients cried. They wept. Some begged again and again, falling on their knees, even hitting their heads on the floor in desperation, pleading to the owner of the company to return their money or at least deliver their goods. But the man denied them. Their money was gone. Their orders vanished. Their hopes destroyed. And for those who refused to remain silent, for those who tried to fight back, for those who decided to go to the police or seek justice, something always happened. On their way to the station, they would either lose their sanity or their lifeless bodies would be found on the streets of Lagos. And just like that, their voices were silenced, their stories were buried, and fear spread quietly across the city. This company in question was owned by a man named Ezeego, a man in his late 50s, a man whose very presence sent shivers through the bodies of people, a man people feared without even knowing why. He was strong and powerful, not just physically, but spiritually as well. He was not a man to be messed with. Ezeego was wealthy beyond measure. His riches could not be counted. His houses were many, scattered across the city, each one more luxurious than the last. His cars were countless, shining, intimidating, just like the man himself. But if there was one thing that stood out about Ezeego, it was not just his wealth, it was his wickedness. Ezeego was an ugly man, not just in appearance, but in heart. His small head, his heavy body, and his presence alone could make anyone uncomfortable. But in this world, money covers many things, and Ezeego had money. Enough to make people ignore what they should have seen. He had deprived many of their happiness. Many had entered into agreements with him. Orders were placed, contracts were signed. People gave him money to buy goods from overseas, believing they would receive them safely. But at the end of it all, Ezeego would deny them. He would look them in the face and say he did not know them. He would reply he had never seen them before. He would say no business had ever taken place between them. And just like that, their money was gone. To Ezeego, scamming people was not a crime. He believed that money gotten from deceit was the sweetest kind of money. Not just the sweetest, but the easiest. Money that required no much stress, only a wicked heart. Ezeego was not an ordinary man. In one of his many houses, there was a room, a private room that no one was allowed to enter. A room that remained locked, silent, and feared. Inside that room, in a corner, stood a mirror. Not an ordinary mirror, but a mirror that saw beyond this world. Through that mirror, Ezeego watched those who dared to challenge him, those who refused to keep quiet, those who threatened to expose him, and one by one, he dealt with them. Some lost their sanity, wandering the streets like shadows of themselves. Some fell mysteriously, their lives cut short without explanation. No one could prove anything. No one could fight him. Because Ezeego was not just rich, he was dangerous. A wicked, heartless man whose power went beyond what the eyes could see. In that same city of Lagos, there lived a young man named Monachiso, a hard-working young man who had served his boss for 15 long years. 15 years of waking before dawn, of preparing the shop before anyone else arrived, 15 years of calling out to customers and passers-by, of arranging goods neatly on the shelves, cleaning the floors, and making sure every item sparkled. 15 years of giving his best, day after day, never complaining, never asking for more than his due. And finally, the time came for his loyalty to be rewarded. His boss, recognizing the years of tireless service, decided to settle him. He handed Monachiso 120 million naira. 120 million naira for his hard work, his dedication, his faithfulness. Enough money to start a business of his own, to build a future free from struggle. Monachiso could hardly believe it. He felt as if luck itself had smiled upon him. His heart raced with excitement. For the first time in his life, he held the power to shape his own destiny, to create something that was entirely his. 6 weeks after he had been settled, Monachiso began to plan his first venture. He had long dreamed of selling goods that people needed, something that would move fast and bring profit. And he thought of goods not from the local market of Nigeria, but from overseas. The price there was cheaper, the quality better, and the profit the profit could be enormous. He imagined crates of goods arriving in Lagos, customers lining up to buy, and his wealth multiplying beyond what he could even calculate. Monachiso began to look for a company that could help him bring his plan to life. That's when he heard of Ezeego Capital Management. He heard stories of the company's power, its reach, and its connections. How it was known throughout Lagos and beyond. How it had access to international suppliers, and how it claimed to move goods swiftly across borders. People spoke of it with respect, and sometimes with envy. Monachiso's heart beat faster. Here was a company that could make his dream real. Here was a company where his hard-earned money would be safe, or so he thought. He made up his mind. He would entrust his fortune to Ezeego Capital Management. He would give them the money to buy his goods overseas, confident that their reputation, their connections, and their promises would protect his money. After all, if the company was well known and well connected, how could anything go wrong? Few days later, Monachiso went to Ezeego Capital Management. He walked in with purpose, holding tightly to a neatly written list of the goods he wished to order from overseas. His steps were steady, confident, like a man who was ready to begin building a world of his own. And that was it, the beginning of his downfall. As he stepped into the company, a strange feeling washed over him. The entire place carried a scent, not just of perfume or polished floors, but of power, of wealth. Everything around him spoke of success. The shining tiles beneath his feet, the soft hum of air conditioners, the expensive furniture arranged with precision. It all felt like a place where dreams truly came to life. Before he could even take a proper look around, a well-dressed young man approached him with a bright, practiced smile. "Good afternoon, sir. You are welcome," he said. The respect in his voice was immediate. Monachiso was surprised. This was his first time here, yet he was treated like someone important, like a man who already belonged among the wealthy. He was offered a seat, cold drinks were brought to him. Every movement, every word, every gesture made him feel valued. It was as if they already knew he was about to do something big. The young man introduced himself as the manager of the company. He spoke smoothly, confidently, explaining how everything worked, how easy it was, how reliable their services were. Then, after listening to Monachiso's request and glancing through the list of goods he had brought, the manager smiled again, this time with a deeper sense of approval. "You've come to the right place," he said. "In fact, you are lucky. The person in charge of handling transactions like this is available." Monachiso leaned forward slightly. "The CEO himself," the manager added. Without wasting time, the manager stood up and gestured for Monachiso to follow him. Together, they walked through a long, quiet hall. The deeper they went, the more the atmosphere changed. The noise from the reception faded, replaced by a heavy silence that pressed gently against the ears. Finally, they stopped in front of a large door. The manager knocked once, then slowly pushed it open. "Sir, you have a visitor," he said. And then they stepped inside. The office was large, far larger than Monachiso had imagined. Everything in it spoke of power. The furniture was expensive, dark, and polished. The air felt heavier here, colder, almost as if the room itself opened their eyes to watch how he was going to lose his money. And then Monachiso saw him. Seated behind a massive desk was Ezeego, a man who was ready to bring down his 15 years of hard work. Ezeego said nothing at first. He simply stared at Monachiso for a few seconds, his sharp eyes studying him,
weighing him as though trying to see beyond the surface. Then, slowly, he stood up. A faint smile spread across his face. Not warm, not friendly, but controlled. "Welcome," he said calmly. His voice was low, steady, and carried a strange authority that filled the room. He stretched out his hand, and Monachiso quickly stood to shake it. The moment their hands touched, Monachiso felt something he could not explain, a slight coldness, a heaviness. But just as quickly as it came, it passed. "Please, sit," he said, gesturing toward the chair in front of him. Monachiso nodded and sat down. Ezeego returned to his seat as well, leaning back slightly, his eyes never leaving Monachiso's face.
"So," he began, folding his hands together on the table. "What can we do for you?" Monachiso cleared his throat gently, trying to steady himself. "I came to place an order," he replied. "Goods from overseas." Without hesitation, he brought out the list he came with and handed it over. Ezeego collected it slowly, carefully. He began to read. Silence filled the room. The ticking of a clock somewhere in the office became louder. Monachiso sat still, watching, his heart beating faster with each passing second. Ezeego's eyes moved from one line to another. Then, after a while, he placed the paper gently on the table. "The total," he said calmly, "is 128 million naira." Monachiso's heart skipped. 128 million naira. That was more than what he had. He leaned forward slightly. "Sir, I only have 120 million naira, so the goods will have to be adjusted. It must not exceed that amount." Ezeego looked at him for a moment, then slowly he nodded. "That will not be a problem," he said. He picked up the list again, this time with a pen in his hand, and one by one, he began to make adjustments. Some items were reduced, some quantities were cut down. Each change was done carefully, precisely, because this was something he had done many times before. Monachiso watched closely, following every movement, every calculation. Minutes passed. Then finally, Ezeego stopped. He tapped the paper lightly with his pen and pushed it forward. "Take a look," he said. Monachiso leaned in, his eyes scanning the list quickly. The numbers had changed, the calculations were clear. Everything had been adjusted. At the bottom of the page, 120 million naira was written. Not a naira more, not a naira less. Monachiso nodded with satisfaction. "Yes, this is perfect," he replied. Ezeego gave a slight nod. "Then we can proceed," he replied calmly. Without delay, Monachiso brought out his phone. His movements were steady, confident, like a man who knew exactly what he was doing. He opened his banking app and entered the account details given to him. 120 million naira. The full amount. The money his boss had given him. The money meant to build his future. He completed the transfer without hesitation. Within seconds, his phone vibrated. Transaction successful. "It's done," Monachiso said, lifting his head. Ezeego glanced at his own phone briefly, then nodded. "Payment confirmed," he said. He reached for a document, signed it, stamped it, and pushed it toward Monachiso. "This is your confirmation. Your goods will be processed and shipped. Everything will be handled accordingly." Monachiso picked up the document and looked through it. Everything appeared proper, neat, and official. A smile spread across his face. A satisfied smile. "Thank you, sir," he replied with genuine appreciation. Ezeego simply nodded. Monachiso stood up, holding his document firmly. His heart was light, filled with excitement. This was the beginning of something great. He could already imagine it, his goods arriving, his business growing, his name becoming known. He turned and walked out of the office with confidence. Step by step, he left the building of Ezeego Capital Management, his mind filled with plans, his heart filled with hope. To him, everything had gone perfectly.
But to Ezeego, he was nothing but another useless idiot whom he had just deprived him of his money. After Monachiso left the company, back in Ezeego's office, he lifted his phone and glanced at the transaction details. 120 million naira. A slow, cruel smile spread across his face. He let out a quiet chuckle. Goods, my foot. Abroad shipping, eh? He whispered to himself, his voice low, dangerous. This boy thinks he's smart. Thinks he can send goods and make a profit overseas. Fool. Absolute fool. Without another word, he pressed the bell on his desk. Within moments, everyone working under him was summoned. His manager, accountants, secretaries, the drivers, even the gate man at the entrance. One by one, they filed into his office, standing perfectly silent. Ezeego rose from his chair, towering over them despite his short frame, his eyes sharp and piercing. "Did you all see that young man that just left this company?" he asked, his voice cutting through the room like a whip. They nodded, barely daring to breathe. "You all know how the deal works," he continued, pacing slowly. "You all know the rules of this business. Now listen carefully. That young man, Monachiso, never came here. We have never done business with him. We have never seen him. Understand?" "Yes, sir," they replied in unison. The manager spoke up, trying to show loyalty. "Sir, you don't need to remind us. We already knew. We've been doing this for many years." Ezeego's eyes narrowed. He leaned forward, his voice low but venomous. "I just want to make sure your brains are still active." One by one they filed out, the echo of their footsteps fading as the door clicked shut. 2 months later, Monachiso returned to the company. He went there with a big truck, very big, hoping to carry all his goods, because this was the day Ezeego had given him to come for his goods. When he got there, he stepped out of the truck and signaled to the driver to position his car well. Then he stepped inside the company. He met the manager, who welcomed him with a question that made him blink 3 times. "Hello, welcome, sir. How can we help you?" he asked. He looked around, trying to find who the question was meant for, convinced that the question could never be for him. But then the manager spoke again. "Excuse me, sir. I'm talking to you. How can we help you? Are you here to sign a contract or to buy goods from overseas? Which one?" he asked. Once again, Monachiso blinked. "Hold on," he replied. "I think you did not recognize me. I'm Monachiso. I really don't expect you to have such a weak memory. How can you forget about me so soon?" "Well, it's fine. I will introduce myself," he said with a smile. "I am the young man that came here 2 months ago. I paid for goods, and today is the day your boss asked me to come and carry my order. That is why I'm here. Please, can we round up everything? There's a driver outside waiting for me."
"You mean you came here 2 months ago?" the manager asked. Manager, are you the one asking this question? Are you not the one that led me to your CEO's office that very day? I was here on October 12. Do you not remember?" Monachiso asked. "Well, it's fine if you have a weak memory. Where's your boss? Call him. I'm sure he's going to know my face. I don't know what is wrong with your memory. I don't know that you used to have memory loss." Monachiso said, still playing around, not knowing that his entire world had been crushed 2 months ago and he was just about to find out. "I don't have a memory loss. Neither have I seen you before," the manager replied. "Could you perhaps be in the wrong place? Because I have not seen your face or even someone that looked like you in my whole world, in my entire life, ever since I was born until this age of mine, I have not even seen someone that looks like you, let alone knowing you. I think you should check other companies because you are in the wrong place." "This is the one I will not accept from you," Monachiso said angrily. "This is the one I will not take. What do you mean I'm not in the right place? Do you think I have memory loss like you? No, manager, stop it. Where is your boss? Call your boss this minute. Where is my goods? Where is my order? Where are the things I paid for? Why am I even discussing with you while I know the way to your boss's office?" Monachiso walked past the manager straight into Ezeego's office. He barged into the office.
When he saw Ezeego, he demanded for his goods. The things he ordered for, the things he paid for. Today is the day you asked me to come and carry the things I ordered for. That is why I am here. Please, can we proceed? He asked. Ezeego stood up slowly and walked toward Monachiso. He stopped right in front of him and asked, "Young man, do we know each other? Because I don't understand what you are talking about."
"You must be joking, right?" Monachiso said. "You and who is joking?" Ezeego replied. "Who are you? And how dare you barge into my office? Who even let you into my office?" He turned and rang a bell on his desk, and the manager immediately came in. Ezeego shouted at him furiously. "How can you let random people barge into my office? Is that why I'm paying you? You don't know your job anymore, right? Should I fire you? Because it is obvious you don't know how to do your work properly. Who is this man? And how dare you let him barge into my office?" "I'm sorry, sir. This young man here claims to have done business with us," the manager replied. "So, have you done any business with him? Because I don't know this man and I have not seen him before," Ezeego said. "I haven't done any business with him, sir. And that is what I have been trying to explain to him for a long time. But he ignored me and came straight to your office. I'm really sorry, sir." Ezeego turned back to Monachiso and said, "Young man, as you can see, I don't know you and I have never done any business with you before. So please, leave." Monachiso burst into laughter, the kind of laughter people give when their heart is about to shatter, or when you are being called an idiot, even though you know what you are saying is the truth. He laughed. His body staggered slightly. His mouth trembled. He was shocked. Then with a low voice, he asked, "Are you trying to deny not knowing me?" "We don't know you. I don't know you," Ezeego replied. "Hey!" Monachiso shouted, his two hands on his head. No, how can you say you don't know me? How?" He brought out his phone. "Look at this," he said, stepping closer. He opened the transaction detail. 120 million naira. "Isn't this your name? Isn't this the transaction proof that I made, that I sent money into your account?" he asked. Even with the transaction proof, even with the receipts Ezeego gave him that day, even with all those proofs, Ezeego still denied him. "I have never done any business with you," he said. Only then did Monachiso understand that he had been scammed. He fell to the floor and let out a loud scream that echoed across the office. A scream so heavy, so painful, that even the walls seemed to listen. He rolled on the ground, his body trembling, his chest rising and falling like a man who had just been struck by lightning. Tears rushed out of his eyes, uncontrollable, hot and bitter. He cried. He cried like a child who had lost everything. No words at first, just pain. Raw, deep, unbearable pain. Then slowly he gathered himself. With great struggle, he pushed his body up from the ground and stood on his feet. His eyes were red. His face was soaked with tears. His chest still heaved heavily. He looked straight at Ezeego and said, "So, I did business with you? You collected my money and assured me that my money would be safe with you. And now, instead of you to deliver my goods, the things I paid for, you are here denying me, denying that you have never seen me before." He shook his head slowly, tears still falling. It will never be well with you." His voice rose. "You see today, it is either you give me my money or forget about me leaving this place." Before anyone could respond, he collapsed to the floor again. This time, the pain was louder. He screamed, he shouted, he cursed. His voice filled the office as he cried out for his money, demanding that it be returned to him. "Hey!" Ezeego barked, turning sharply to his manager who stood behind. "Get security and throw this idiot out of my office, and make sure he never steps his feet in this company ever again." Immediately, the security men rushed forward. They grabbed Monachiso, but he resisted. He kicked, he struggled, he fought with everything left in him. but he was no match for them. They dragged him across the floor. "No, no, leave me," he shouted, his voice breaking. He held tightly to the door with one hand, refusing to let go, his fingers gripping it as though his life depended on it. But the security men were stronger. They pried his hand off, dragged him out, and threw him outside. Outside, Monachiso lay on the ground, broken. He cried. He shouted curses upon curses on Ezeego, his voice filled with pain, anger, and helplessness. The truck driver he came with stepped closer and asked him what the problem was. With a heartbreaking voice, Monachiso explained everything to him. How he did business with the company, how he paid a huge amount of money into their account so they would bring his goods from overseas to Nigeria, and how Ezeego had just denied him, denied knowing him, denied ever seeing him before. He cried as he spoke. Tears poured down his face like rain. The man listened quietly, his face filled with pity. Then he sighed and said, "My brother, the only thing you can do now is to go to the police. They are the only ones that can help you. Since you have your transaction details and the papers he gave you that day, go and report it. Let them handle it." Monachiso slowly stood up. The truck driver stayed with him. They both entered the truck and drove off. But Monachiso was no longer the same man who came there with hope. It was as if life had left him halfway, as if the world beneath him had collapsed, as if his spirit was slowly leaving his body. Even as he sat inside the truck, he kept crying. When they got to the police station, something happened, something strange, something that made the truck driver fold his hands in shock and disbelief. At the police station, Monachiso was about to give his statement to the police when suddenly he started laughing non-stop. He began jumping, removing his clothes, speaking words that made no meaning, words that made everyone around him step back in fear. "Who even brought this madman into the police station?" one policewoman asked. "No, he's not mad," the truck driver replied quickly. "I came here with him now. How can he be mad? He was normal. He was very, very normal. I came here with him, but I don't know why he's behaving like this, just like a madman." "How can you say he's normal when he's a madman?" the policewoman replied. "Can't you see him? He's mad. Please take him away from here." "I promise I don't know what is wrong with him," the truck driver replied, confused. "He was not like this earlier. I don't know. I really don't know." He tried to explain to the police that Monachiso was not mad before, that something had just happened, that even he could not understand what was going on, how he suddenly started behaving like a madman, like someone who had been roaming the streets for many years. "Take him away from here, before I flog him out. What is all this bringing a madman into the police station?" another officer shouted. The truck driver, still confused, managed to take Monachiso out of the police station. He tried to speak to him, trying to understand what was going on, what had happened to him, how he suddenly started behaving like a madman, like someone who had been roaming the streets for many years. Monachiso kept laughing non-stop, speaking words that no one could understand, words that made no sense. It turned out that Ezeego had made Monachiso mad. He had looked through his mirror and saw Monachiso at the police station, trying to expose him, trying to tell the police what had happened. And so, he deprived him of his sanity. He took away his ability to think like a normal human being. He made him mad. The truck driver tried to communicate with him for a long time, but it seemed quite difficult. He watched Monachiso run into the streets. He tried to stop him, but he couldn't. All he could do was fold his hands and watch as Monachiso roamed the streets mad, with his torn clothes hanging loosely on his body. He shook his head, then turned around, entered his car, and drove off. Days turned into weeks after the incident, after Monachiso was made mad by Ezeego. Weeks turned into months, and Monachiso was still roaming the streets of Lagos. With his senses gone, he ate from the gutter, he picked from the dustbin, he stepped on dirt and rotting bread. The dustbin became his home. Ezeego, on the other hand, continued his scamming business. He scammed people again and again. And if you think you are wise, if you think you are smart enough to speak up after being scammed, he would make you end up like Monachiso, or even take your life away from you forever. One fateful day, Monachiso was being beaten by people because he threw away a basin of rice. They beat him, forgetting that he was mad, a madman, no longer a normal human being. But someone saw him, and that person recognized him immediately. It was his boss, the same man he had served for 15 years with loyalty, the same man who settled him with the sum of 120 million naira. The man was sitting in his car when he sighted him, Monachiso. At first, he did not believe it was him, but his face. There was no way he could forget that face. The face of a boy who had served him for 15 years. The face of someone who had slept in the same house with him. He quickly parked his car and stepped out. He went closer. The people were still beating Monachiso. His face had been bruised. They had injured him badly. What kind of nonsense is this? Will you people stop that? Why are you people hitting him? What has he done? The boss asked. The people turned and explained. This madman has been causing trouble. He destroys people's goods. Anytime he enters the market, he scatters everything. And today, he threw away a basin of rice. We are only teaching him a lesson so that next time, his madness will not go that far again. The boss frowned deeply as he looked at them, then at Monachiso. How can all of you beat him like this simply because he threw away rice? His voice was filled with anger. He reached into his pocket and brought out money. "Take this and let him go," he said. He handed them the sum of 250,000 naira. "I hope this is enough to cover the rice he threw away," he added. The people quickly collected the money, their faces changing at once. "It is enough, sir, it is enough," they replied, smiling. And just like that, they left him. Monachiso remained on the ground, bruised, broken, dirty. He slowly lifted his face and looked at his boss, as if asking, "Who is this man that just saved me?" His boss stood there, staring, his heart heavy, his eyes filled with disbelief. This was Monachiso, the same boy he had settled just a few months ago, now roaming the streets mad. For a few seconds, he said nothing. He only folded his hands, staring. Then suddenly, "Who did this to you?" he asked, angrily. "Who has the guts to make you end up like this?" Monachiso only looked at him, his eyes empty, his mouth moving with no meaning. The boss shook his head slowly. He bent down, held him, and helped him up. Carefully, gently, he led him to the car and helped him inside. Then he drove off. The boss took him straight to his apartment. When they got there, he ordered his men, "Keep a close eye on him. Make sure he lacks nothing," he said. They nodded, and Monachiso was kept there. 2 days later, the boss and his men took Monachiso to a place not known to ordinary people, a place feared, a place respected. The place was called Meriogo Shrine. It was deep, hidden, surrounded by tall trees whose leaves blocked the light of the sun. The air was heavy, quiet, but not peaceful. The ground was covered with dry leaves and ancient marks. Charms hung from branches. White chalk symbols were drawn on the earth. There were pots, broken calabashes, and objects no one could fully understand. It was a place where the ordinary world ended and the unseen world began. When they arrived, the bodyguard stopped at a distance. They did not go further. Only the boss held Monachiso and took him inside the shrine, step by step, into the heart of that powerful place. When they arrived, they met a man inside the shrine, a man that was not like any human, a man with 2 heads, 4 legs, and 4 hands.
The sight alone was enough to make the heart tremble. The environment inside the shrine felt like another planet entirely. It did not feel like a place on earth. All around them, human skeletons hung from different corners of the shrine. Skulls of both humans and animals hung from the walls, from the roof, some tied together in strange patterns, swaying gently as if they were alive. Even the ground beneath their feet was not normal. It was covered with bones, dry bones, crushed bones. Each step they took made a faint cracking sound beneath them. The color of the shrine was not ordinary. It was not the color of clay, not the color of sand. It was something else. Something that did not look like it came from this world. Something that felt older than the earth itself. The air was heavy, suffocating. Then the man spoke. When he spoke, his voice did not sound human. It sounded like dry bones scraping against each other, like something long dead trying to speak again. "I know why you have come," he said. The sound echoed across the shrine, sending a cold chill down their spines. The man told Monachiso's boss everything that had transpired. How Monachiso went to do business with Ezeego, how a contract was placed before him, and how he signed it. Then he spoke of what came after. How Ezeego denied him, denied knowing him, denied ever seeing him before. As if that was not enough, he revealed the final wickedness. How Ezeego made Monachiso mad after he discovered that he had gone to the police station to speak. The boss stood there, frozen, hearing everything, seeing the truth laid bare before him. Anger rose inside him like fire.
"This is evil," he said. "This is wickedness," he added. He turned to the beam before him, his voice filled with rage. "I want justice for him," he said. The shrine fell silent once again. Both heads of the man slowly turned toward him. "Please help him. I beg you. Help him out of this situation. Restore his sanity and grant him justice. Please, I beg you," he pleaded. He stepped forward, his eyes filled with desperation. "You have never disappointed me before, and I know you will not disappoint me this time. This is my boy." His voice shook. "I settled him well because he served me faithfully for 15 years. If anything happens to him, people will hold me responsible. His people," he paused, swallowing hard. "Please help him. He is like my own child. I cannot see him like this. I cannot stand and watch his sweat, his suffering, being taken by another man." His voice grew heavier. "I cannot watch him roam the streets mad while another man is enjoying the fruit of his labor," he added. He lowered his head slightly. "Please, you have to give him justice. You have to restore his sanity. You have to help him out of this situation. I beg you. You have never disappointed me before," he pleaded. The shrine fell silent. Then, the native doctor stood up, slowly. His movements were calm, but carried weight. He began to mumble words, deep words, words that did not sound like the language of men. He spoke to his oracles, calling on powers unseen, his voice rising and falling like something ancient, something feared. The air inside the shrine shifted. Then suddenly, he stopped. He turned his gaze to Monachiso's boss. "You know you are at the right place," the native doctor said. His voice still carried that dry, bone-like echo. "I will not only restore his sanity," he paused. "I will also give him justice," he added. His eyes darkened. "I will punish those who wronged him."
He lifted one of his hands slightly. I only need a few things. A bag of charcoal, cola, gunpowder, and alligator pepper. That is enough, he said. His voice grew deeper. Enough to set right everything that has gone wrong in his life. Enough to punish the wicked and bring justice to him, he added. He pointed toward the entrance of the shrine. Go, get all the required items for this ritual and make sure you return by 3 a.m. when the world is silent, when spirits walk freely. Come back and it will be done. He looked at Monachiso briefly. You can leave him here with me. I will take care of him. Go and come back soon, the native doctor said. The boss nodded immediately. I will get it, he replied. And without wasting another moment, he turned and left the shrine, leaving Monachiso behind, alone with the man who held powers beyond understanding.
Midnight, the boss returned with all the required items the native doctor had requested. The ritual then began. The native doctor ground the charcoal, grinding it slowly until it was enough to cover a man's body completely. He dipped his hand into it and began to paint Monachiso's body from head to toe, from his face to his neck, from his chest down to his legs. He covered him entirely. Monachiso sat there, still, quiet, his mind lost to the world, unaware of what was being done to him. The native doctor performed the ritual, murmuring words, deep words, strange words, words that did not sound like the language of men. His voice echoed within the shrine, low and heavy, like dry bones scraping against each other. The air grew thick, the hanging bones swayed gently, and the ground beneath them felt alive. Minutes later, the ritual ended. Monachiso stood up. He looked around, and fear gripped him immediately. The environment of the place he found himself in was terrifying. He looked down at himself, and what he saw made his fear even worse. His whole body was covered in a black substance he did not understand. He looked up and saw the native doctor, a terrifying man with 2 heads, 4 legs, and 4 hands. He staggered back a little, but then he saw someone else standing beside the native doctor, his boss. At once, his expression softened. He ran to him and quickly hid behind his back. Sir, how did I get here? He asked, his voice shaking. What is going on? Why am I covered with this black substance? He added. His boss turned to him calmly. Don't worry, my dear. You are fine and you are safe, he replied. At that moment, Monachiso collapsed into his arms, crying, shedding tears, begging him to avenge him. He told him everything, how the money he gave him for business had been taken away, taken by a man stronger than him. He begged his boss to help him. The native doctor stood quietly, then began to mutter some words while looking at his oracles. His lips moved slowly, speaking words only the spirits could understand. When he was done, he took a white substance and blew it into the sky. Far away, in Ezeego's house, something struck him, something unseen. He jacked up from his bed. Without thinking, he took his checkbook and signed a check of 2.8 billion naira. Then he stepped outside. He began to walk, not like a normal man, but like someone being guided by something unseen. He walked out of his gates and began a journey to the native doctor's shrine. He walked for a long distance. He walked for hours. He did not look back. He did not stop. He only moved until he finally arrived at the shrine.
He walked in slowly, his eyes empty. Without a word, the native doctor stretched out his hand. Ezeego gave him the check. The native doctor collected it and handed it to Monachiso. Then he turned to Ezeego, his voice grew heavy, and with a single act, he struck him with madness. He cursed him to wander without rest, to lose his mind, to carry the pain he gave to others. And instantly, Ezeego lost himself. His sanity vanished. He turned and ran out of the shrine. From that day, Ezeego roamed the streets of Lagos, mad, from Lagos to Ibadan, from Ibadan to Onitsha, from Onitsha to Port Harcourt. No rest, no peace. A man who once took from others, now lost to himself forever. And Monachiso, his sanity restored, his money returned, stood as proof that in this world, no matter how long evil hides, one day justice will find it. And for those who think they are strong, that they are born to deprive people of their happiness, to deprive people of that which belongs to them, those addicted to evil, they should always remember that their wickedness will surely come back to them in abundance. The end.